Wurrzag and the boys are celebrating because in an upcoming patch they're moving home. They're leaving the dusty old Badlands and heading for the tropical jungles of the Southlands. And while I am excited for a new adventure for my boy, I am sad to see the end of Wurrzag in the Badlands. It's been one of my favourite campaigns since Warhammer 1 through Warhammer 2 and to today in Warhammer 3. So here's to you, Wurrzag in the Badlands start position. This is going to be the last time playing one of my favourite campaigns, but let's make it spicy. We're of course only going to use Savage Orcs and any other kind of fitting tribal-ish creature, and I figured because Greenskins are one of the 4 OG Warhammer 1 factions, we're going to prove that we're the best by taking out the main lords of all those other factions. So Thorgrim, Manfred and Karl have all got to go. This means that from our western Badlands start position, we've got to come up north to get the Empire in Reichland. We've got to go all the way down south into the desert to the Shifting Sands to get the vampire counts, and just a little bit to our northeast to get after Thorgrim and the dwarfs in the Silver Road Mountains. Now to make this doubly spicy, I'm going to try and do all of this by turn 100. But let's make it triply spicy. If I can manage that, and I honestly have no idea whether I actually can, but if I can, I will give away 10 copies of the new Greenskins DLC. If I can't, I'll only give away 3 copies. Them's the rules, here we go. Wurrzag campaign, very hard, a little bit of a stat boost as usual, and on into our OG Badlands start. Now, one thing that's nice about this is that I don't actually need to delete half my army like I usually do at the start of these campaigns, so that's a nice change. We got a hero as well. He's just going to be an agent though, because he's a gobbo, and we don't want him in our army. And while the game would like me to fight this first battle, it's actually a complete waste of time, so we're going to run away from that and run around him to go and get the settlement where the faction leader is. Because, well, I think we all know what happens if we bonk the faction leader on the head. So we send in the boys charging headlong into their front line with our savage boys, flanking around with the boar boys, getting rid of their cavalry and their missiles. A little bit of bonky from Wurrzag, a wah here, a brain burster there, and we've got our first victory. And with this, of course, comes the Confederation from bonking the leader on the head. So we're going to get most of our first province by turn 1. The next order of business is to get a massive army, and because Wurrzag gets Savage Orcs so cheap, we are going to get a scheisse ton of them. I then stand on the border ready to get Stone Mine Tower, the last settlement in this province, but a full Scabby Eye stack has gone and sat in there, and I'd rather not have to fight my way through all those gobbos. So while we wait for them to hopefully move off, I'm going to get rid of these ogres near Bitterstone Mine, because I left these here once before. If you remember in a previous video I did this campaign, I left these ogres alone and they eventually came back and bit me in the ass. Well, not this time. A couple of turns on, the Scabby Eye army has moved away from Stone Mine Tower, so I'm going for it, declaring the war. Bada boom, that's mine now, and you can see the Scabby Eye army there is just to the north, besieging Scrag, so hopefully they quickly become ogre food. Now to the matter of taking out the 3 factions. We're going to start with Thorgrim in Karak-a-Karak, because obviously, of Empire, Vampires and Dwarfs are by far going to be the biggest nightmare if they get huge and get loads of armies, so the sooner we can take them out, the better. Now, while I'm on my way to go and commit some war crimes on the Scabby Eye, we managed to get an underway interception, bonk them on the head, only to realize, oh, that was actually the faction leader and we've just got another Confederation opportunity. But I don't actually want it. You see, as a British man, I'm programmed to use and abuse other cultures for my own gain. In this case, I'm going to bully the Scabby Eye to get my wah. So I'm going to execute their leader and then push on to what settlements and armies I can to raise, sack and attack them, all in the name of getting it up. The war meter, that is, you filthy bastards. I start moving towards Karak-a-Karak because I start to wonder if I'm going to even need the war, because after scouting, I found that they'd been pushed on by the Crooked Moon, and that's going to make our life way easier. And over the next couple of turns, there's no armies in Karak-a-Karak, so goddammit, with a 16 garrison, I'm going for it. This can be one of the hardest places to take when the dwarfs are strong, so we're going to go for it while it's weak. And thankfully, I'm able to take 1 turn to build a battering ram so that we can get through the door easier at least. Pushed by the hard-working Wurrzag, by the way. I send a lot of the boys in another direction so that they can push on the walls where there is no defending dwarfs, so we can get in the settlement nice and easily and unscathed, although a little bit tired. We ram down the door and the boys come in through the front with Wurrzag, where they are met by the defending dwarf army, and while Savage Orcs don't have armor-piercing damage, mine are slightly buffed up, so they got good melee attack, which is going to help them get through that dwarf armor. I do sneak a couple of units in the back door as well to cause some trouble, but it doesn't take long for us to spill all over the settlement, green tiding everywhere, taking the capture points where we can. I do make a play for the 2 victory points to win that way, because churning through dwarfs can take a while and may take more life than we need to give, but ultimately in the end I didn't need to, as we just straight up beat the army, although we did take a fair old pounding ourselves in the process. I decided just to raise the settlement, although I would like to sack it and get the money. I was worried a dwarf army might appear, and then I wouldn't be able to raise it on the next turn. So taking out Karak-a-Karak was a big win for us. That's going to hurt the dwarfs immensely, and it's pretty much going to spell the end of them. The Crooked Moon are still pushing them. Scrag, though, has just declared war on me, that cheeky little chubby funster. And along in this same turn, we got attacked by a dwarf army, as I was worried about. I'm obviously in no shape to take this, so I got to leg it and hope for the best, and luckily their short legs can't catch us. Now, thankfully, I've been building a second army with some units I wanted to bring over into Wurrzag's army, but I'm going to put it in the north on the border with Scrag, just in case he comes after us. Now, while I need to escape that dwarf army that's nearby, Scrag has also sent an army to get me as well, so we got to underway our way out of there, over to Karak-a-Karak, because I need to get rid of that as well, and I got to hope there's no armies there, which thankfully there isn't. And of course, this wouldn't be total war unless there was some goats arbitrarily declaring war on you, but to my hearty Orcan lols, they can't even beat up our garrison, so we're going to get a Pyrrhic victory auto-resolve. I'll take it. See you later, Malagor, you dick. Also, see you later, Karak-a-Karak, as we take care of that settlement. And then I start to push down the mountain towards Iron Rock, only to find that the Crooked Moon have already taken it off the dwarfs, and they're pushing on them pretty hard, with 2 full stacks wired out of their mines. But somewhere out of the shadows, some big chunky boys come and attack Bitterstone Mine, and I'm not really liking my chances, but we gotta try and beat them down so they at least can't attack anywhere else. Now, this map is actually one I've made a good few defenses on using the strategy I'm gonna use here. Everything is in the center around this main point. I'm creating a choke point here with missiles backing it, a choke point here with missiles backing it, and they're gonna fire at anything that comes these 2 ways. And then we're just gonna try and hold anything off we can at the back that comes this top way. So the ogres come marching in, we're hammering them with missiles. I've got some towers built right next to them as well, so all the missile firepower we can on these big boys. And because they do have pretty low leadership, we can rout them away quite comfortably. Although there is a lot of them, so they do kind of keep coming. And that's the problem we have, is that they are going to wear us down and we are going to run out of ammo. I do fall back from trying to hold the hilltop, and I instead hold at the bottom of the slope. And honestly, I think we may have had a chance here if they didn't have a lord, because that's the one thing we can't really do anything about. We've only got savage orcs and savage arrows, but all the ogre bulls and the nobos, we're holding off well enough. All I really need is a lord myself to take on their lord, but as I didn't see this attack coming, I didn't recruit one. So we are going to lose this one, but we hurt them plenty. We took out all their ogres, so at least they can't do any more of our settlements. Especially because I put the garrison buildings in these settlements, because I know that they're going to be hard to defend because they are quite spaced out. So those garrison buildings, they saved us from Malagor earlier. They allowed us to beat up the ogres at least. And we are going to go back to go and reclaim that settlement. They come out to attack my smaller army. We're going to bonk them on the head at the cost of some squigs. All the while, the Crooked Moon are bonking the dwarfs on the head, taking their settlements off them, doing our job for us. And Malagor comes along and asks for peace, realizing that he's a bell polisher. I then move my small army, led by Gitter, back towards Stone Mine Tower because there's a big dwarf army nearby, leaving Wurrzag to come and reclaim our lost settlement. And thankfully, things start coming together as Scrag now decides to get peace with us, so now we're only at war with those damn Karak-a-Karak dwarfs. And of course, those dwarfs are going to come at Stone Mine Tower on the next turn with a battle that I'm not sure I can win, but goddammit, we're going to give it a go. I push out of the settlement towards the largest and most dangerous part of their army. It's got Thorgrim in there, it's got hammerers, it's got most of their strongest units all in this one place, but there's only like 6 or 7 units there. So if I can overwhelm it with most of my army, I can deal with the other 2 smaller forces coming from different directions with the rest of my army. That's the plan anyway. Thorgrim himself can be one of the biggest problems when facing a Thorgrim army because he is quite the tank, so I've got the big uns on him, and then it's a case of trying to surround the other units to get rid of them as quickly as possible, breaking their leadership hopefully, because we don't want to have to fight our way through every single dwarf because we don't have the staying power for that. We need to break the leadership. Eventually, we get that main force mostly beaten up as the other 2 start to arrive to the center, but I've got towers built now to help us out. We've got plenty of normal savage orcs in the center to try and fight stuff off, but all the stronger stuff, the big uns and that, are over with that other group. So they're going to start making their way over now, and hopefully all of our army can come together to work together to finish off these last strong parts of this dwarven force. There's still some slayers, there's still some great weapons, still a Thane knocking around. But eventually we did manage to grind our way through them and rout them off before we even needed to take out the Thane. So we've survived their onslaught. It's a Pyrrhic victory, but we got the victory all the same, and that's beaten down that big dwarf army as well, which is only going to weaken that dwarf faction further. I try to finish it off, but nope. We'll have to come back to them or hope the Crooked Moon takes them out. I am beefing Wurrzag's army up as well, getting some Savage Orc Biggins in there and the Biggun cavalry, so his army is getting much more meaner and much more greener. And over the turns, that army comes back again trying to take Stone Mine Tower, but our garrison is no match for it apparently, which is kind of surprising as they've got 2 heroes and a lord. But that garrison building is saving us again, and with that, thank the Jesus, I finally get to see that message that Karak-a-Karak has been destroyed. So there is our first faction down, all before turn 30. So if I can take the other 2 out in another 30 turns each, we should be on track to beat 100 turns. I decide now to go after Manfred in the south, so we're going to start going in that direction, trying not to trespass and get any more unnecessary wars. A couple of the marsh settlements seem to be raised and they have chaos corruption, not Skaven corruption, so I guess they're safe to move through. Not that it mattered anyway, because on the next turn, Queek declared war on me anyway. Now this is problematic because I don't have time to stay back and defend. I've got to get on if I want to beat that 100 turns, so it's all up to Gitter in my second army to try and fend the Skaven off. Now while I've been moving down south, I first sent my hero in to scout Manfred and see what we were up against. And yeah, they're doing quite well for themselves. They got 4 stacks here, a bunch of settlements. So yeah, in the words of Nick from Left 4 Dead 2, tits! But old Zerky's always got a trick up his sleeve because I saved my war, because I didn't really need it to take down the dwarves because the Crooked Moon did it for me, so I saved my war for pushing on the vampires, and now it's going to come in handy. This is going to give us 2 stacks to deal with the vampires as we move into their territory now. This is also going to help our defending army against the rats, who have a couple of armies that I can't get a hold of at the moment. And just as I get a non-aggression pact with the Crooked Moon, we also get attacked by a couple of vampire count stacks. So, let's get them. We're going to charge straight at their stupid vampire faces, but I did notice they had a lot of strong flying units, so I kept a couple of my Savage Orc Boar Boy Big and Cavalries back, because I'm fully expecting those flying units to dive after Wurrzag or my missiles, and when they do, we can meet them with anti-large green fury. And this is going to set us up to get rid of some of their strongest units nice and quick, because otherwise it's just a lot of skeletons, zombies and doggos, which our boys will have a field day with. And once Wurrzag himself gives the final clonk to the enemy lord, down he goes, and if the vampire lord dies in a vampire army, it normally spells the end for everything else. And with a little flankaroony here and a little flankaroony there, we break their leadership quick, committing their horrible corpses back to the earth. So that's a couple of the local armies taken down without losing too much ourselves. Back home, things have been better. We're currently besieged in Bitterstone Mine by 3 Skaven armies, but Skaven armies are, well, Skaven armies. They're never as intimidating as they look. They're made up of a lot of clan rats and Skaven slaves, so let the bonking commence. We send an absolute wall of green tide heading for their first deployed army, because they've got to wait for their 2 reinforcing armies, which just so happen to be behind us, so it means we can pretty much take out this first army before those ones can even get involved. So we hit them with Savage Orcs from the front, Boar Boys from the back, and well, they didn't last too long, this army. We got them mopped up pretty quick without taking too much damage ourselves, and before the other 2 armies got anywhere near trying to help this one. The reinforcing armies trickled their way in. We jumped on their artillery so they couldn't do any damage. My reinforcing army came in as well, my War army. We eventually kind of clamped down on them and sandwiched them, and of course for every Orc unit you can probably take out 2 Skaven ones, so we eventually beat our way through them no problem. I also went and finished any armies off that I could to hopefully teach Queek a lesson so he'll shit off. And thankfully, a couple of turns on, that's exactly what he did, and he got peace with us, so he wasn't a problem anymore. Manfred, though, was a bit of a problem as he started to roll towards Wurrzag with a pretty tough army, as well as a couple of others around him, so we decided to play the strategic game here, because I know that Manfred is also at war with Skarbrand here, who has a big army right here, so I'm going to try and get the hell out of there, let Skarbrand beat up some of those armies, hopefully, and I can go and raise some settlements in the back of this empire, because they most likely won't be defended. And randomly here, Wurrzag has gained a skill point, so I can now get real Savage Boys to increase the melee attack and general damage output of my boys, and Savage Riders for more of that on the cavalry, because of course I'm putting all my skill points into buffing up everything Savage Orc as much as possible. And over the turn, we nearly get absolutely murdered by about 4 stacks of vampires, but luckily we can just about retreat. You can see there's like 4 vampire armies hot on my tail. I am going to attempt to underway my way out of here at the risk of interception, but luckily we get away with it. And thank Mork they don't pursue us, so now we're free to actually attack some settlements, raising up this first settlement, then heading for our target settlement of Kar-Sabar, which has an army inside it, so that's another one we can get rid of, but hopefully we can get them to come out of the settlement so we don't have to fight a damn siege. And voila, they play ball and come out of the settlement, although they do have some decent units, Graveguard, Black Knights, some Vargeists. However, we've got all the answers to the problems they bring. We've got lots of anti-large to deal with the cav. We've got high melee attack infantry that's just going to churn through theirs, and this battle is pretty much just a long line of absolute mashing. So that's our target settlement dealt with. I'm actually going to sack it for the Wonga as well, and then raise it up shortly afterwards. Now at this point it's turn 43 and I want to get the vampires wrapped up by turn 60, so we got 30 turns to deal with the Empire and then some, so I'm beefing up Gitter's army to come down south as well. But Wurrzag's staying busy raising up 2 more settlements down here before 3 angry looking vampire armies are all crowding around me. However, the vampires, much like the Skaven, aren't always as intimidating as they seem. These armies are a lot of zombies and crappy skeletons. This is the power of us taking out their early game settlements which had all their recruitment buildings. So they roll up on us and I'm not too worried. We've got our big army, we got a bit of a war left, and we can get an auto-resolve close victory, so goddammit, I'll take it. That's 3 of their armies out the way anyway. Now at this point we've got all of their southern territories destroyed. Just a few armies around which I do want to finish off just in case they all run around and start retaking settlements. But Gitter's army has just arrived, so he's going to speed things along, heading straight for Qatar and razing that to the ground. As we're at turn 51 at this point, time is getting a little short. Wurrzag is chasing down the last of the straggler armies and then moving towards the final vampire count settlements. But whoa, the vampires strap on their big balls and come after us with only 1 decent army. But while I could fight this and win, I can't be asked with an underway battle, so I'm just going to retreat for now and try to set up a better situation. So I'm going to use Gitter to besiege Numas here, which is just over to the right of all those armies. So I'm going to try and draw them over here away from Wurrzag so that he can hopefully finish off just 1 or 2 armies by themselves. Maybe even the settlement. And over the turn, it worked. They came after Gitter and brought 1 of their armies or 2 of their armies over there to try and stop him. So we retreated because his army isn't strong enough to deal with that. And then they came after Wurrzag again with Manfred and another army. But this time it's only 2 armies and it's in the open field. Let's get them. Now in this one I used the rest of my war as basically a meat shield because they were all nearly dead anyway and my war's nearly run out, so they can just soak up some damage and mess everything up because that is a pretty large vampire force. Again, we had a lot of the tools to deal with their strongest units, so as long as we took care of those, we should be okay. Although they did somewhat worry me a little bit when they started routing a lot of my frontline infantry, although I then remembered that that's just my crappy war stuff. Manfred then somehow managed to get himself stuck in a bunch of my Savage Orc ball boy biggins, who bonked him on the face until he stopped moving. And with his demise came our victory and another 2 armies out the way. Over the turn, Wurrzag is attacked again by another army. We could get a quick auto-resolve victory, but we'd lose one of our gold chevron biggin units. So I fight it and Wurrzag can sum it up in 1 move. Just a big pimp slap. So we get that army sorted out the way, and then Gitter gets attacked by 1. I have to fight that battle, get them out the way, and then we get the Ardlad skill point for more buffs to our orcs. At this point, Manfred tries to get peace. I say no. He throws more armies at Wurrzag again. We smack them across the chops. They're gone as well. Just die, will you, vampire counts? This is taking too long. Eventually, I've beaten away all their armies to actually be able to attack Khemri and get rid of it. Wurrzag prepares to finally get rid of Manfred and the vampire counts to prove he's the best. But why does Wurrzag just sit on a hill a long ways from the wall? Well, that's because we've got sneaky plans. We put a couple of holes in the wall with our hero before the battle, and I moved my reinforcement army to come out over here, even though they've got to wait 6 minutes for it. To kill some time, I brought Wurrzag up to the wall and had him start dropping some spells on the other side of the wall just for funsies, and then all my reinforcement boys eventually rolled up and started pouring in. We then began the assault with Wurrzag's army from the front as well, taking on the doors and climbing the walls. So eventually the place was just filled with orcs from all directions. They put up a reasonable fight. I managed to take the victory objectives, not that it mattered because we beat the army anyway. And with that, we were about to raise their penultimate settlement and move on to the final one in Numas to finish the vampire counts goddamn off. And with that, all of their territory was now destroyed. There was just a couple of straggler armies to finish off, who thought it would be funny to go and retake some settlements. Dicks. Just fucking die already, will ya? It was now turn 60 and we weren't even on our way to the Empire yet, so I started to send Wurrzag back for that reason, and hell, even Skarbrand was so annoyed with the vampire counts that he actually came to help me in this last battle to get rid of these little bastards. So shout out to Skarbrand for the help, and with that, finally the message: the Drakenhof Conclave has been fucking destroyed. 2 down, 1 to go. Dwarfs have suddenly appeared in my lands. Apparently there was a rebellion and now there's dwarfs, even though my public order is fine, but I think this is the new mechanic that got put in the last update, where random little encounters can happen, so I think this is one of those. Luckily we're on our way back there, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Thankfully they very kindly waited until Wurrzag was back in the settlement before they decided to attack us and swiftly died. Now, because we're short on time, I'm getting this done by 100 turns, and we got a fair bit of money in the bank. We're going to recruit ourselves a 3rd army to take up to the Empire to help out. Now, to see what we're running into, I've sent my scouts ahead to try and see how big the Empire is. I don't know if they've got 3 settlements or 30. Kemperbad seems to be razed to the ground, which is a good sign for us because it means the Empire don't have it, which means maybe they're not that big. I've been making Wurrzag's army as beefy as possible as well. I've got a couple of rogue idols in there, stone trolls, using all my scraps to upgrade them. I need this army to be an absolute powerhouse because the other two armies are going to be on the weaker side. Now I start scouting towards Altdorf to find that the Empire are alive, and they do at least seem to have the Reichland, and some of Middenland to the north. And looking in diplomacy, I can see they've got 15 settlements, so a fair amount that we've got to get through. We better get a shift on. So I start racing my army up there quickly as I can, trespassing on whoever the hell is in the way. I'm also in some pretty hefty negative income, and I've only got 25 grand left, so I really need to move quick and start making some money, sacking and raising settlements, whatever. I am raiding on the way to help out, and at turn 73, time is of the essence. Now, as I start moving through Stirland, I have to make the toughest decision of this campaign and not attack the elves, which is really hard for me because I fucking love attacking elves. But the problem is that they're allied with the Empire, who are allied with Nuln, which means if I attack the elves, I'm going to have to fight my way through the Nuln armies, which we just simply don't have time for. So we've got to ignore them, hope that they don't pursue us too hard up here in the Reichland. They are at war with the von Carsteins, so that should keep them at bay. I am raiding the absolute balls out of them as well, getting a nice bit of income from that though, and trying to set myself up to be able to hit a bunch of Empire settlements at the same time, and when we're in position, it's war time. I've been saving it for this very moment. I've got about 21 turns left to get this done, 15 settlements. Let's go! So I declare my war and start off by hitting Grunberg, which is apparently going to cost me my squigs if I auto-resolve it for some damn reason. So I fight this one, sending the main bulk of my orc army up the top of this minor settlement, but I'm going to hide them out the way for now and wait for the real attacking force, which no, isn't the Lord and couple of units of trolls over the other side. They're going to hide out the way as well, because this battle plan is a squig show, my friends. We hit our squigs out the way and we've got them coming in from an open angle on the left-hand side, and before they can say what the dick balls is that coming out of the trees, well, these furious little testicles will let them know. This facilitates the push of my trolls coming in from the eastern direction, and the boys pushing in up on the main square. And then it's just a case of wearing them all down. We got that armor-piercing squig power, and ultimately their army is just spread too thin, and we overwhelm them with numbers all over the damn place. So that's the first settlement down. I do think about sacking it because I kind of need the money, but I go for the raising to save the time. Over the turn though, Oglok's army, who just fought, nearly takes a clobbering as a couple of Nuln armies come after him, but he's able to retreat just out of range, thankfully. On the next turn, I underway him to safety near Gitter's army, who attacks Ubersreich, but I decide to fall back from this and wait for Oglok to help us because there are two big armies nearby. And then it's time for the big man to go to the big town as Wurrzag attacks Altdorf, which apparently has 900 units of Reichsguard defending it, but we're going to need to get in there, so I decide to fall back, and I'm going to use my hero to try and damage their walls, if he can at least pull it off. I've only really got one turn to try this, and thankfully, he's successful. So we got a couple of ways in without having to wait for towers or anything. If we could take out Altdorf right here early, it's massively going to hurt the Empire. So after Altdorf we go, springing out of the trees where all the boys were hidden, so we can take sneaky advantage of the holes in the wall that we made. Meanwhile, the rogue idols over the other side of the settlement have pulled all the enemy units over there, so we've got a free ticket into Altdorf. We spill all over the place as much as we can, as quickly as we can. We're met by some cavalry, which quickly turns this battle into a choke point grind fest. We do our best to get through their barricades and scores of cavalry. Eventually, Wurrzag and a small group break through on the left side and start to flank around to get behind the other choke points. The rogue idols arrive to the fight and start churning through the cavalry, that with a bit of flanking on those choke points, and they're done. And with the sacking of Altdorf comes a massive sack of gold. So you know we gotta take it, 47 grand. I've got minus 3,400 income at the moment, so I need the monies. We gotta sack first. I then decided to actually go ahead and take Altdorf instead of just raising it, because they may try to come after it and get it back, and that will sacrifice a few of their armies, pull their armies away from other settlements that we'll be able to get to, so we can try and use it as a strategic lure. Over the turn, I've got Gitter set up in an ambush near Oglok, but obviously it fails. Karl comes after us with a bunch of his boys and a hell of a lot of heroes. Let's have them. From the start of the battle, Karl Big Balls Franz charges straight at us, straight into our entire army. Of course, we jump all over him and pin him down so he can't get away and try to finish him off right there and then. This main starting part of my army is up on the hill, ready to charge down. I'm just waiting for this second part of my army to arrive, and then we're all just going to absolutely bum rush these little bastards downhill. And very quickly, the greenest of hills becomes even greener as the green tide flows down it towards what is a very badly organized Empire army, and well, you can imagine how this one goes. Just orcs everywhere. Maybe some squigs as well. They were hidden in the trees. They're coming in on the flank to try and get after all the missiles because they do have quite a lot of those. And as you can see, we are just absolutely overrunning them like there's no tomorrow, which is an incredibly appropriate saying because most of these men will not have a tomorrow. And between some Savage Orc Biggins, some Trolls and some Squigs, Karl Franz did not last too long, although his cape is still erect for some reason. There was just an ungodly amount of orcs in this one. They wired up as well. This Empire army was thoroughly screwed. Over the turn, I had Oglok attack Ubersreich so he could pin the garrison inside, allowing Gitter to get after the remaining nearby army. And then it was just a case of racing Ubersreich to the ground. Progress. I rewarded Gitter's army with 2 new regiments of renown, the Biggin and the Ragnarok Queen. Now, because we were short on time at turn 83 and we had a good bit of money in the bank, I recruited a 4th army, for now mostly to defend Altdorf, so I could use Wurrzag to push out and take some more settlements, which here at Karaberg we've got a settlement we need to take out. There's an army in there we need to get rid of as well, so 2 birds with 1 stone. Let's get them. For this one, I have my big anti-infantry boys in the center with the anti-infantry cavalry because all of their cavalry was on their flanks. So I sent my Biggin infantry and Biggin cavalry out on the flanks to deal with all the large, whilst the rogue idols and trolls absolutely clapped all of the infantry in the center. This allowed us to get the best matchups pretty much all across the board. We crushed the flanks pretty quickly and then just clamped down on that center with all the remaining infantry, and bada bing, another settlement wiped off the map, the first one in Middenland. And back over the west with Oglok and Gitter, they've now got a fort settlement to deal with, which has a full-on garrison and an army inside. So we got to fight this one to get the best results so that we can keep moving forward. If we get too beaten up, it's going to slow us down too much, so fighting all these battles to try and get the best results. There isn't much to do in this fort settlement other than barrel forward, get up on the walls and start smashing stuff as quickly as possible. This battle was pretty horrible though. Too small of a settlement, too many units, 40 units on both sides in this tiny little settlement. It was just horrible. My units were ignoring my orders half the time. I tell them to do stuff, they just stand there, which when you're getting shot at by grenade launchers isn't great. So I probably ended up with a worse victory than I would have got if I just auto-resolved a Pyrrhic victory. I don't know. But whatever, we got the victory, we got that fort settlement out the way, we'll keep moving forward. I came to find the Empire had spilled over onto the other side of the fort as well, taking Montfort here. So naturally, we had to delete that from existence too. And then what do you know, over the turn, some Empire armies come and try to reclaim Altdorf as we'd hoped. I did have the good sense to build a garrison building there though, so we got a decent garrison. I've got a few units from that other army I was building, but honestly the AI literally just sat outside and got shot. That's all they wanted to do in this battle. They didn't want to push forward, they didn't really want to try and take us out. They fired some grenades, that was about it, and then they just died. So that was about it for them. They didn't last too long. Altdorf is still ours. But who's this? A new challenger knocks on our door. It's Luen Leon Kerr of those stinking French, with an army that's actually not terrible, to be honest, so we better be a little bit careful. In terms of timing, we're on turn 85. Carl's still got 10 settlements I need to deal with, though, and that feels like quite a lot for 15 turns, so it's going to be tight if we can make it. Before the turn ends, one of my heroes has a go at stabbing a French, and he succeeds and gets rid of one of their wizards, which happens to be incredibly helpful as they do indeed attack Altdorf on the next turn. They come at us in 2 small forces, which is definitely a bad idea when you're Bretonnian. Although both of their little armies are similar in strength, it doesn't last long because they decide to go full Battle of Winterfell, sending in just their Pegasus Knights by themselves into all my Biggins and arrows, and would you believe it, they died horribly. So I Battle of Winterfell them back, sending in my cavalry by itself, although I have the game plan of trying to get rid of this one piece of artillery that they have, willing to sacrifice the cavalry for that greater good so that they can't put any holes in the wall and get in, which is exactly what they've done on the other side of the settlement, although apparently one hole isn't enough. They are going to stay sat there, putting a second hole in the wall to make sure they can all get in. I don't know, French tactics, I guess. This explains a lot about World War II. Back on the other side, we have forced the army to come up and get us with our cavalry. Our cavalry has just about survived. Their other force, again led by Luen, has finally put that second hole in the wall and is actually coming to get us now. And more great French battle tactics as Luen charges in all by himself into my Biggins and Trolls, so we jump on him, put the missiles on him as well, get rid of him as quickly as possible. The other little bit of the army on this side is climbing over the walls. They're just going to get shot to pieces as they come over, so they do pretty much nothing, and then it's just a case of bashing whatever is left of the Luen side army. They had some cavalry and infantry over there. They spilled around all over the place. We met them with Green Fury. They didn't do a lot. And to nobody's surprise, the French did absolutely nothing in a war again. Eventually, we had Gitter move up and take out Isleheart, which was the final settlement in the Reichland, so we've got that clear as well as a few other bits around. Just a little bit left to the west, and then most of the stuff in the north, and we should be able to get this done. We've got 14 turns. Let's go. Oh, never mind. We've been attacked at Altdorf yet again. It's Boris Todbringer this time. Fucking Toddy. We're going to take it to him harder than Karak the One-Eye coming out of the settlement ourselves because they've split their army up into 3 different groups. So I'm going to focus on the stronger 2, smash them first with 2 halves of my army, which leaves their last little group having to deal with pretty much my entire army. So naturally, they did a death. Wurrzag's now been freed up to go on a rampage with his full war stack, so we're going to take out the fort settlement here. So that's another settlement out the way. Gitter is going to bonk the remaining nearby French on the head to get rid of them. But over the turn, Altdorf is once again attacked, and me being bored out of my beard can't be asked to fight another goddamn Altdorf defense, so I just take the Pyrrhic victory at the expense of the army and the garrison, but you know, the garrison will come back, so whatever. The fun doesn't stop there though, as Karl Franz then attacks Oglok's army. I decided to fall back from this though, because I wanted to get a cool little showdown between Wurrzag and Karl. But once again, all in the same turn this is, by the way. Altdorf gets attacked again by the 2 armies that attacked it just now. They're all beaten up. I can get a Pyrrhic victory auto-resolve though. I don't realize how quite close it cuts it though when I hit the auto-resolve, because only my lord is left with the tiniest little smidgen of health. They very nearly took Altdorf, or if there's any other armies around, they'd be able to take Altdorf right now, but thankfully, we're safe. And extra safe as my garrison building just got upgraded over that turn as well, so we got a full garrison back. Nice. Wurrzag then pushes on towards Marienburg to get rid of that. And at this point, Karl now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 settlements left. But in diplomacy, it says they have 8 settlements. So where the hell is that last one? Because I can't see it anywhere on the map. I start to scout around with my heroes and figure I'll come across it somewhere, can't be far away. And as I start moving into Middenland, Karl Franz decides to intercept us in the underway. We can't retreat from this, we gotta fight it. Although I'm just gonna take the Pyrrhic victory, as we're not gonna lose any units. Not quite the showdown with Karl I wanted, but I guess he's got time to come back. We then went on a bit of a rampage in this northern area of the Empire's lands. We raised Gorsel, I besieged Arnhau for a little while. Wurrzag went after the Black Pit, got rid of that nice and easy. And bang, by turn 91 we had them down to seemingly just a 3 settlement. The Scaling and Festus had been pushing on them as well. I just needed to find that one last hidden settlement, so I scouted around the map looking for any sign of it, and I saw a little fleck of red here in the Bretonnian lands. It didn't say who controlled it though, so I'd have to go over there to have a look, so I sent one of my armies in that direction just in case it was over there. And what do you know, there it goddamn was. Castle Artois, owned by the Empire, not something you see every campaign. Normally it's Bretonnian. Over in Talabheim, the Empire's easternmost settlement, we put some holes in the wall and prepared Wurrzag to besiege that. As for Castle Artois, it was turn 94. We couldn't wait around to get rid of it. We just had to jump on it. It was a bit of a suicide mission because there's 2 big Bretonnia armies nearby that are probably going to jump on our boy Gitter once he gets this done. But that doesn't deter him. He razes it to the ground, sacrificing potentially himself for the love of Gork and Mork. And that is precisely what happens over the turn. Those 2 Bretonnian armies come after my boy. I try to retreat, but he can't get out of range. Decisive defeat is predicted. 2 full Bretonnian stacks. Luen in one of them. Gitter's army is beaten up. There's no way I can win this, but I can't let him go out on a decisive defeat auto-resolve, so we gotta fight it. Luen kindly charges himself into my entire army again, all by himself. Sadly though, I don't really have the units to properly get a hold of him and do too much damage to him, but there's not a lot to do in this battle other than barrel forward and do what damage we can to whatever is in front of us. And we got a fair bit of work done. We killed off a few units. We killed about 1,000 Frenchmen overall, so that's a good day at the office. And we ended up with a valiant defeat. After this, we finally finished off Arnhau after besieging it for like 5 turns. Festus actually went and finished off Middenland. My 4th army here, Nash Badaxe, went and took out some random leftover Empire army led by Todbringer. And with that, there was nothing left to do but go after the final settlement of Talabheim. So on we went. I sent the trolls in first to go and knock on the doors very politely, and when they kindly opened them up, we stormed in and smashed everyone in the face. Pretty normal for a Greenskins invasion, really. We attacked 3 different doors so we could come in from 3 different directions, just spilling in all over the place. I sent my cavalry in one door and infantry through the other 2, and as you can imagine, all these poor little human men didn't stand much of a chance. All in all, this was a pretty nice battle to finish this Wurrzag campaign on. Didn't get to have a big showdown with Karl Franz, unfortunately, but Wurrzag ends it here with the destruction of this settlement, although it would be nice to sack it. It's pointless, because it's over. They're done. The Empire's done. Reichland is destroyed, but what turn did we get it all done by? 95. 5 turns to spare. We done did it, which means I will indeed give away 10 copies of the Greenskins DLC when it's available, hopefully in a couple of months. But there we go, my final Wurrzag Badlands campaign. It's been fun. Thanks, Wurrzag. I'll see you in the jungles. Hopefully that campaign is going to be good too, maybe even better in some ways. We shall see. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. If you want more of this stuff, I got a whole playlist here. I'll see you in the future.